Assalamu alaikum fam, hope you're doing well. So we're continuing our very deep textual analysis and overall book review of Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan. Now, you hear a lot about Hobbes in many different classes, so let's go piece by piece. As you know, I've already read ahead for nearly all of it, but it's always good to refresh and walk you through it. You can listen to it while you commute. It's always important to expand your mind. So, we're still dealing with the topic of honor. So, he has enlightened us greatly. Let's continue. Nor does it alter the case of honor, whether an action, so it be great and difficult, and consequently a sign of much power, be just or unjust. For honor consisteth only in the opinion of power. Okay, so here, by the way, side note, the spelling of English here is quite different, and as you read it, it really makes you comfortable with looking at the different spelling of the English words, and you won't get tripped up. So that's another bonus about picking a copy that hasn't been modernized in its English, because you actually will learn a different type of spelling. So when he says, honor consists only in the opinion of power, so that's a tart statement, isn't it? What do you think about that? Does honor only come from your perceived power upon that person? Right? Will you be more honorable with someone who you see has power? Right? Does power denote honor? You see? It's very interesting, that statement. Therefore, the ancient heathen did not think they dishonored, but greatly honored the gods when they introduced them in their poems, committing rapes, thefts, and other great but unjust or unclean acts. So here, he's probably talking about the Greek pantheon, right? I have that right here. I mean, he has a point. They were not very moral, right? Zeus especially. So he has a point there. And so much as nothing is celebrated in Jupiter. Yeah, so Jupiter is another name for Zeus. As his adulteries, exactly. So, he was very, very bad. In fact, the legend goes, the way Heracles was born was, Zeus cheated on Hera. The human got pregnant with Heracles. Hera, the wife of Zeus, got jealous and caused Heracles to go on his 12 labors, and eventually made Heracles go nuts, and he harmed his family, and it was a tragedy, right? You think, that it would end it better, but it's a very interesting time. And that phrase you hear all the time, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, that is usually a reference traditionally towards Hera, who was the wife of Zeus, who became jealous because he cheated, and then saw he had this really strong, healthy son from this human who she felt was inferior, right? So that's some context for you, in case you're not up to date on your Greek mythology. Nor in Mercury, as his frauds and thefts of those praised in a hymn of Homer, the great, that is, that being born in the morning, he had invented music at noon, and before night stolen away the cattle of Apollo from his herdsmen. Okay, so that's kind of funny, right? So think about this folk tale, pretty much. It was a myth, right? But to them it was religion. So Mercury, he's born, and he matures so quickly, they contend, that he writes music, he invents music by 12 o'clock. So he's born in the morning, and then by noon, he's so skilled he just invents music, right? It's kind of ridiculous. And then at night, he plays music, and he takes Apollo's cows. He leads them away. Now, if you don't know, you can play a tune sometimes, and your cows, the female cows, your heifers, will come back. There's some videos you can see of people playing music for cows, and they come very curiously to the fence, right? So, this is kind of like a very funny, funny attitude. So notice how, remember he mentioned the bad behavior of the Greek deities? So what are these two deities doing? they're playing games with each other, right? Thank goodness we're monotheists, you know? Also amongst men, till there were constituted great commonwealths. It was also thought no dishonor to be a pirate or a highway thief. And notice how, if you're on that section in part 1, chapter X, he spells thief instead of Theif, he spells it Theeefe. Thiefy. It looks like thiefy, but you know it's thief, right? So you can tell how our spelling has changed. So here, he's contending that even though these empires were great commonwealths, right? It wasn't a dishonor to be a pirate or a highway thief. You can take some contention with that. I don't, I do think we have to give some credit to where it's like they had some type of order of like, hey, you can't go around doing that, but let's see what he says. But rather a lawful trade. Okay, so there's like a funny part there. How can it be a lawful trade if it's thief? If it's piracy, right? Because the term pirate and thief implies there was no lawful trade because there wasn't an agreement settled upon, right? So not only amongst the Greeks, but also amongst all other nations, as a manifest by the histories of ancient time, and at this day, in this part of the world, private duels are and always will be honorable. So here you have private duels. So people going at it, they have a duel, and it could still be seen as honorable. So if you were having a private duel, you didn't get dishonored for it. Though unlawful, till such time as there shall be honor ordained for them that refuse. So you can still get honor by refusing, right? And the ignominy for them that will make the challenge. So ignominy, so somebody can get some type of honor, a minor form of it, from making the challenge, and the person who refuses it can also get honor from denying it as well. So he's really shown us a dynamic example of the complexities of honor, right? For duels are also many times effects of courage. So here, a duel, he's contending, has an effect of courage. When you have courage, you set forth to enter into a duel, he argues. And the ground of courage is always strength or skill. So he's contending, if you have courage, you are grounded in strength and skill. So your strength and skill lead you to have courage, and that courage will lead you to offer a duel or accept a duel. And that stems from honor. You see that logical chain there? Which are power. So notice how honor and power has now come full circle for us. Though for the most part, they be effects of rash speaking. So here's the point. Rash speaking is very quick, right? And fear of dishonor. So he has a point here for us. So these duels can rise from a fear of dishonor and the effects of rash speaking. Rash meaning quick, right? In one or both combatants. So he's saying these elements can be found in not just the aggressor and the person who's receiving it, but both can actually have it, right? It's not exclusive. Who engaged by rashness or drives into the lists of avoid disgrace. Scutcheons and coats of arms, hereditary, where they have any eminent privileges, are honorable. So coats of arms that are hereditary. This is quite true, especially for, I think for England, especially in Scotland, and the Italians as well. It's you French, right? Your coat of arms is like your symbol. Think of like, here's a funny example, is the houses of Harry Potter, right? You have House Gryffindor. Those are they're not coats of arms necessarily, but just think of that imagery, right? It denotes something, and there's a sign of honor to it when you wear it, right? Otherwise, not for their power consisteth either in privileges or in riches, or some things as is equally honored in other men. This kind of honor, commonly called gentry, has been derived from the ancient Germans, so the gentry folk. So the gentry, they contend, they have privileges and riches, and they are noted by their coats of arms that are hereditary, meaning bloodlines, right? there never was any such thing known, where the German customs were unknown, nor is it now anywhere in use, where the Germans have not inhabited. So he's contending that the Germans really brought this custom of the coats of arms of bloodlines with them wherever they went. The ancient Greek commanders, when they went to war, had their shields painted with such devices as they pleased. So here's another good point, right? On the shields of the Greeks, he contended they painted on their shields certain things. You can get into a very cool military books of history and see the different coats of arms. It's actually something very fun to do. And you might even begin to memorize some of them and really enjoy it. It's quite interesting. Insomuch as an unpainted buckler was a sign of poverty and a common soldier, but they transmitted not the inheritance of them. The Romans transmitted the marks of their families, but they were the images, not the devices of their ancestors. So here you start comparing the Romans, how they have the marks of their families, and then the ancient Greek commanders, how they could kind of paint their devices as they please, whereas the German customs had these coat of arms that are hereditary. So he's given us several examples here. Among the people of Asia, Africa, and America, there is not, nor was ever any such thing. The Germans only had that custom, from whom it has been derived into England, France, Spain, and Italy. Okay. So he just laid out those countries for us, who were in the use of bloodlines and representing them in coats of arms. When in great numbers, they either aided the Romans or made their own conquests in these western parts of the world. So that's pretty interesting, right? Yeah, very interesting. So what do you think about the dual aspect? And then do you agree with his contention that there was a civilization that didn't dishonor pirates or highway thieves? You never know. Some riffraff could have done it, and it maybe would have been something not as stigmatized, but one could argue that some people might not have kept it as open, be like, hey, I'm this or that. But it's quite interesting, very educational and nerdy.